She slid the folder across the kitchen table like it was nothing, like it was a grocery list or a coupon she'd clipped and didn't need anymore. Just sign here, Mom. It's routine paperwork. The accountant said it needs to be done before the end of the quarter. I looked at the folder. I looked at my daughter. She was already reaching for her phone, half distracted, the way she always was when she visited, which wasn't often. I didn't sign. I said I was tired and needed to rest, and she said fine, she'd leave it with me, and she kissed me on the forehead the way you kiss someone who doesn't quite understand things anymore, the way you kiss someone whose opinion you've already stopped counting. She was wrong about that, but she didn't know it yet. I should tell you about the house first, because the house is where everything starts. My husband, Clifford, we called him Cliff, built it in 1987. Not with contractors, not entirely. He laid the back porch himself, board by board, over one long summer. I brought him sweet tea and he complained about the heat and, our son, 7 at the time, dragged his little radio flyer wagon in circles around the yard while Cliff worked. It was the happiest summer I can remember. Cliff passed 11 years ago. Heart attack, sudden, the way they always are. One morning he was reading the paper at that same kitchen table. By noon he was gone. The house became mine, the memories became mine, and so did the problem of what to do with both. My daughter, I'll call her by what she called herself in those years, the practical one, had moved back to the state after her divorce. She was 43. She had 2 boys in middle school, a mortgage of her own that wasn't quite working out, and opinions. Lord, she had opinions. About what I should eat, about whether I was driving too much, about the house. It's too big for you, Mom. 4 bedrooms. You only use 2 rooms. The stairs are going to be a problem eventually. I had told her I was 68, not 98, and that I could manage my own stairs just fine. She had smiled the way adults smile at children who say something a little bit wrong. I noticed. I always noticed. I just didn't say anything, not then. The first thing that changed was the finances. About 2 years ago, my daughter suggested I let her help manage things. She said it with the right words. I just want to make sure you're protected, Mom. And with everything going on in the world, these things get complicated. She had a friend who was a financial advisor. She'd have him take a look at my accounts, help me optimize, she said. I was not naive. I had taught 4th grade for 31 years. I had raised 2 children largely on my own after Cliff's first health scare left him working reduced hours. I had managed a household budget, a pension, a small inheritance from my mother, and the sale of 3 different cars over the years without anyone's help. But I was lonely. That's the honest truth. And when you're lonely, sometimes someone offering to help feels like love, even when it isn't. I let her friend look at my accounts. He was polite, young. He wore a tie that was slightly too wide, which made me think of the 1980s, which made me feel old. He explained things confidently, and then explained them again when I asked questions, which I did not take as a good sign. Nothing dramatic happened right away. That's how it works, I later understood. You don't lose everything on a Tuesday. You lose a little here, a little there, until you look up and the landscape has shifted and you can't quite remember how you got to where you are. Over the next year, my daughter began handling the tax paperwork, then the insurance renewals. Then she became the point of contact for my investment accounts, just to help field the calls, she said. I still had access. I could still see everything. But she was the one who understood it, she said. She was the one the advisor called. Then she mentioned the house, not directly. She mentioned property taxes first, then maintenance costs, then a news segment about how many seniors were house rich and cash poor. Then, like it was an afterthought, have you ever thought about whether it makes sense to restructure how the house is held? For tax purposes? I said I hadn't thought about it much. She said she'd look into it. The folder she slid across my kitchen table contained a quitclaim deed. I know what a quitclaim deed is because my friend Odessa's mother had signed one 30 years ago and spent the last decade of her life in a dispute with her own grandchildren over a property she thought she still owned. Odessa had told me the story more than once. The way she told it, you understood it as a warning. I took the folder to my bedroom after my daughter left. I read every page, and then I called Odessa. Read it to me, she said. I did. There was a long silence. Honey, she said, that deed transfers the house into her name. I know, I said. Does she know you know? No, I said. And I'm going to keep it that way for a little while. What I did next, I did quietly. That was important. I had learned from watching my daughter over those 2 years, the soft approach, the patience, the way you don't show your cards until the moment it matters. She had learned those things somewhere too, I suppose. I like to think she didn't learn them from me. I called an estate attorney named Mr. Osi. He had been recommended by my doctor's receptionist whose mother had used him. He was in his mid-50s, unhurried, with reading glasses he kept pushing up with one finger as we talked. His office smelled like old books and coffee, which I found comforting. I told him everything. About the advisor, about the folder, about the 2 years of help. He listened without interrupting, which is rarer than you'd think. When I finished, he asked 2 questions. First, was my name still on all the accounts? Yes, I told him, as far as I could confirm. Second, had I signed anything in the last 2 years that I didn't fully read? I thought about the insurance renewal, the one that had 20 pages and that my daughter had flagged with post-it notes on the signature lines. It's just the annual renewal, Mom, same as last year. Possibly, I told Mr. Osei. He nodded and made a note. Let's find out exactly where you stand, he said. And then let's make sure where you stand is somewhere solid. It took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of phone calls I made while my daughter thought I was watching television. 6 weeks of documents requested, reviewed, explained to me in plain language by Mr. Osei, who never once made me feel foolish for asking him to slow down. What we found, my daughter had not yet done anything irreversible. The quitclaim deed was unsigned. The investment account had been moved into a joint structure, which was concerning but recoverable. There was one insurance policy that had been modified in a way that added her as a co-beneficiary on a secondary account. Small, maybe $8,000, but it had been done without my clear understanding of what I was signing. The good news, Mr. Osei said, is that you caught this before the damage was deep. The bad news? There isn't bad news, exactly. There's just work to do. We did the work. I revoked the joint structure on the investment account and moved everything into a revocable living trust with Mr. Osei's firm as co-trustee. The property, my house, Cliff's Porch, was deeded into the same trust. My daughter's name appeared nowhere in it. The secondary insurance policy was corrected. When it was done, I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. I felt like the house was mine again. I still hadn't said a word to my daughter. She called on a Thursday evening to ask if I'd had a chance to look at the folder. I've been thinking about it, I said, which was true. Mom, we really do need to get this sorted. The accountant, can you come Saturday? I said. We'll sit down and go through it together. She said yes. She sounded pleased, I thought. Confident in the way someone sounds when they believe they've already won. Saturday came gray and cool, the kind of October morning that smells like wood smoke and wet leaves. I had coffee ready. I had the folder she'd left, still on the kitchen table where she'd put it, and next to it I had a different folder. Mr. Osei had helped me put it together. My daughter arrived with her older boy, which surprised me. He sat in the living room with his phone and I brought him a glass of orange juice, and he said thank you without looking up. 14 years old. I thought, in 20 years I hope he remembers this house and what happened in it today. My daughter sat across from me at the table. She picked up her folder, she uncapped her pen, she said, okay, let's get this done. I put my hand over the folder, not pressing down, just resting there. Before we do that, I said, I'd like to show you something. I slid my folder across to her. She picked it up the way she'd expected to pick up a signed document, without looking, fingers already moving to check the pages. Then she stopped. She read the first page, then the second, then she set it down. What is this? She said. Her voice had gone very careful. It's a summary of the trust structure I established 6 weeks ago, I said. The house is in it, the investment accounts are in it. Mr. Osei's firm serves as co-trustee. Who is Mr. Osei? My attorney. She stared at the folder. Mom, the quitclaim deed you left with me, I said, would have transferred this property entirely into your name. I want you to know that I read it, all of it, and I understand exactly what it said. The kitchen was very quiet. Outside, a car went past. My grandson turned a page or clicked something on his phone. Some small sound that reminded me the world was still going on normally outside this room. My daughter looked at me. She tried 2 or 3 expressions before she settled on something that was almost, but not quite, an apology. I was trying to protect you, she said. The estate tax implications? No, I said simply. Not unkindly, just clearly. She stopped. You were trying to protect what you thought you were going to inherit, I said. And I understand that money is frightening when you're worried about it. I do understand that. But this is my home. I paid the taxes on it for 40 years. Your father laid that back porch with his own hands. My voice didn't shake. I was surprised by that. It belongs to me until I decide otherwise, and I have decided. It goes into the trust, and from the trust it will be distributed fairly after I'm gone, to you and to your brother in equal shares, according to terms that Mr. Osei will oversee. Not you, not your financial advisor friend, Mr. Osei. My daughter said nothing for a long moment. Then she said quietly, I didn't think you'd figure it out. It was the most honest thing she'd said to me in 2 years. I almost thanked her for it. I know, I said. That was your mistake. I'm not going to tell you the conversation ended cleanly because it didn't, she cried. I let her. She said things that were meant to hurt me, and some of them did, a little, in the way that your children can always find the soft places in you, no matter how old you both get. She said I had never trusted her. She said her brother had always been the favorite. She said I didn't understand what her life had been like since the divorce. Some of that was true. Not the favorite part. That was old pain talking, not fact. But the rest of it had truth inside it, and I sat with that. I didn't argue. I said, I love you. That hasn't changed. But I will not sign over what's mine because you're having a hard time. That's not love. That's just surrender. She left before noon. Her sons looked up from his phone as she put on her coat. He glanced at me. I don't know what he saw, but he said, Bye, Grandma, with something that sounded like it meant more than the words. Bye, sweetheart, I said. Come back anytime. The house will be here. That was 8 months ago. My daughter and I are speaking again. It took some time. It took a phone call from her brother, who knew nothing of the specifics but could tell something had broken, and worked gently at both ends until there was enough openness to start over. We don't talk about it much. Maybe we will someday. Maybe we won't need to. What I know is this. I wake up every morning in the house where I raised my children. I have coffee at the kitchen table where the folder sat. On good mornings, when the light comes through the east window the way it did when Cliff was alive, I can almost feel him reading the paper beside me. The back porch is still standing. I had it inspected last spring. The inspector said whoever laid those boards knew what they were doing. He did, I told him. He really did. I walk out there sometimes in the evenings when it's warm, and I sit in the old chair that's been there so long the wood has memorized my shape. And I think about what it costs to be someone's mother, the long years of it, the invisible labor, the way you pour yourself out and hope the people you poured yourself into will treat that as something valuable. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they forget. And sometimes, when they forget, you have to remind them. Quietly, carefully, with documents and a good attorney and 68 years of knowing exactly who you are. I took my house back. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just did the work, the same way I always have, and I waited for the right moment. Cliff would have smiled at that, I think. He always said I was the patient one,